The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Vana Parva. Section 302, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Kunti said, "According to thy promise I will, king, with concentrated mind serve that Brahmana. O foremost of kings, I do not say this falsely. It is my nature to worship Brahmanas. And as in the present case my doing so would be agreeable to thee, even this would be highly conducive to my welfare. Whether that worshipful one cometh in the evening or in morning or at night or even at midnight, he will have no reason to be angry with me. Foremost of kings, to do good by serving the twice-born ones, observing all thy commands is what I consider to be highly profitable to me, best of men. Do thou therefore, foremost of monarchs, rely on me. That best of Brahmanas, while residing in thy house shall never have cause for dissatisfaction. I tell thee truly, I shall, king, be always attentive to that which is agreeable to this Brahmana and what is fraught also with good to thee. O sinless one, I know full well that Brahmanas that are eminently virtuous, when propitiated bestows salvation and when displeased are capable of bringing about destruction upon the offender. Therefore I shall please this foremost of Brahmanas. Thou wilt not, O monarch, come to any grief from that best of regenerate persons owing to any act of mine. In consequence of the transgressions of monarchs, Brahmanas, foremost of kings, became the cause of evil to them, as Chavana had become in consequence of the act of Sukanya. I will therefore, king, with great regularity, wait upon that best of Brahmanas according to thy instructions in that respect." And when she had thus spoken at length, the king embraced and cheered her, and instructed her in detail as to what should be done by her. And the king said, "Thou shalt, gentle maid, act even thus without fear for my good as also thy own and for the good of thy race also, O thou of faultless limbs." And having said this, the illustrious Kuntibhoja, who was devoted to the Brahmanas, made over the girl Pritha to that Brahmana, saying, "This my daughter Brahmana, is of tender age and brought up in luxury. If therefore she transgresses at any time, do thou not take that to heart. Illustrious Brahmanas are never angry with old men, children, and ascetics, even if these transgress frequently. In respect of even a great wrong, forgiveness is due from the regenerate. The worship, therefore, best of Brahmanas, that is offered to the best of one's power and exertion, should be acceptable." Hearing these words of the monarch, the Brahmana said, "So be it." Thereupon, the king became highly pleased and assigned unto him apartments that were white as swans or the beams of the moon. And in the room intended for the sacrificial fire, the king placed a brilliant seat especially constructed for him. And the food and other things that were offered unto the Brahmana were of the same excellent kind. And casting aside idleness and all sense of self-importance, the princess addressed herself with right goodwill to wait upon the Brahmana. And the chaste Kunti, endued with purity of conduct, went thither for serving the Brahmana. And duly waiting upon that Brahmana as if he were a very god, she gratified him highly. Thus ends the 302nd section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 303, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, "And that maiden of rigid vows, mighty monarch, by serving with a pure heart that Brahmana of rigid vows succeeded in gratifying him. And foremost of kings saying, I will come back in the morning, that best of Brahmanas sometimes came in the evening or in night. Him however, the maiden worshipped at all hours with sumptuous food and drink and bed. And as day after day passed away, her attentions to him in respect of food and seat and bed, increased instead of undergoing any diminution. And O king, Even when the Brahmana reproved her, finding fault with any of her arrangements, or addressed her in harsh words, Pritha did not do anything that was disagreeable to him. And on many occasions the Brahmana came back after the appointed hour had long passed away. And on many occasions, such as the depth of night, when food was hard to procure, he said, "Give me food." But on all those occasions saying, "All is ready," Pritha held before him the fare. And even like a disciple, daughter, or a sister, that blameless gem of a girl with a devoted heart, King gratified that foremost of Brahmanas. And that best of Brahmanas became well pleased with her conduct and ministrations. And he received those attentions of hers, valuing them rightly. And Bharata, her father, asked her every morning and evening, saying, "Daughter, is the Brahmana satisfied with thy ministrations?" And that illustrious maiden used to reply, "Exceedingly well." And thereupon the high-souled Kuntiboja experienced the greatest delight. And when after a full year that best of ascetics was unable to find any fault whatever in Pritha, who was engaged in ministering unto him, well pleased, he said unto her, "O gentle maid, I have been well pleased with thy attentions, beautiful girl. Do thou, O blessed girl, ask even for such boons as are difficult of being obtained by men in this world, and obtaining which, thou mayst surpass in fame all the women in this world." At these words of his, Kunti said, "Everything hath already been done in my behalf, since thou, chief of those that are versed in the Veds, and my father also, have been pleased with me. As regards the boons, I consider them as already obtained by me, Brahmana." The Brahmana thereupon said, "If, gentle maid, thou dost not, thou of sweet smiles, wish to obtain boons from me, do thou then take this mantra from me for invoking the celestials. Any one amongst the celestials whom thou mayst invoke by uttering this mantra, will appear before thee and be under thy power. Willing or not, by virtue of this mantra, that deity in gentle guise and assuming the obedient attitude of slave, will become subject to thy power." Vaisampayana continued, thus addressed, "That faultless maiden could not, King, from fear of a curse, refuse for the second time compliance with the wishes of that best of the twice-born ones. Then, King, that Brahmana imparted unto that girl of faultless limbs those mantras which are recited in the beginning of the Atharvan Ved. And, King, having imparted unto her those mantras, he said unto Kuntiboja, I have, O monarch, dwelt happily in thy house, always worshipped with due regard and gratified by thy daughter. I shall now depart." And saying this, he vanished there and then. And beholding that Brahmana vanished there and then, the king was struck with amazement. And the monarch then treated his daughter Pritha with proper regard. Thus ends the 303rd section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 304, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, when that foremost of Brahmanas had gone away on some other errand, the maiden began to ponder over the virtue of those mantras. And she said to herself, of what nature are those mantras that have been bestowed on me by that high-souled one? I shall without delay test their power. And as she was thinking in this way, she suddenly perceived indications of the approach of her season. And her season having arrived, while she was yet unmarried, she blushed in shame. And it came to pass that as she was seated in her chamber on a rich bed, she beheld the solar orb rising in the east. And both the mind and the eyes of that maiden of excellent waist became riveted fast upon the solar orb. And she gazed and gazed on that orb without being satiated with the beauty of the morning sun. And she suddenly became gifted with celestial sight. And then she beheld that God of divine form accoutred in mail and adorned with earrings. And at sight of the God, Lord of men, she became curious as to the potency of the mantras. And thereupon that maiden resolved to invoke him. And having recourse to pranayama, she invoked the maker of day. And thus invoked by her king, the maker of day speedily presented himself. And he was of a yellowish hue like honey and was possessed of mighty arms, and his neck was marked with lines like those of a conch shell. And furnished with armlets, and decked with a diadem, he came smiling, and illumining all the directions. And it was by yoga power that he divided himself in twain, one of which continued to give heat, and the other appeared before Kunti. And he addressed Kunti in words that were exceedingly sweet, saying, O gentle maiden, overpowered by the mantras, I come hither obedient to thee. Subject as I am to thy power, what shall I do, queen? Tell me, for I shall do whatever thou mayst command. Hearing these words of the deity, Kunti said, O worshipful one, go thou back to the place thou hast come from. I invoked thee from curiosity alone. Pardon me, O worshipful one. Surya then said, O damsel of slender waist, I will even as thou hast said return to the place I have come from. Having called a celestial, it is not however proper to send him away in vain. Thy intention, O blessed one, it is to have from Surya a son furnished with a coat of mail and earrings, and who in point of prowess would be beyond compare in this world. Do thou therefore, damsel of elephantine gait, surrender thy person to me. Thou shalt then have, O lady, a son after thy wish. Gentle girl, thou of sweet smiles, I will go back after having known thee. If thou do not gratify me today by obeying my word, I shall in anger curse thee, thy father and that Brahmana also. For thy fault, I will surely consume them all, and I shall inflict condign punishment on that foolish father of thine that knoweth not this transgression of thine, and on that Brahmana who hath bestowed the mantras on thee, without knowing thy disposition and character. Yonder are all the celestials in heaven, with Purandara at their head, who are looking at me with derisive smiles at my being deceived by thee, O lady. Look at those celestials, for thou art now possessed of celestial sight. Before this I have endued thee with celestial vision, in consequence of which thou couldst see me. Vaisampayana continued, thereupon the princess beheld the celestials standing in the firmament, each in his proper sphere, even as she saw before her that highly resplendent deity furnished with rays, viz., Surya himself. And beholding them all, the girl became frightened and her face was suffused with blushes of shame. And then she addressed Surya saying, O Lord of rays, go thou back to thy own region. On account of my maidenhood, this outrage of thine is fraught with woe to me. It is only one's father, mother, and other superiors, that are capable of giving away their daughter's body. Virtue I shall never sacrifice, seeing that in this world the keeping of their persons inviolate is deemed as the highest duty of women, and is held in high regard. Thou possessed of wealth of splendor, it is only to test the power of my mantras that I have from mere childishness summoned thee. Considering that this hath been done by a girl of tender years, it behoveth thee, Lord, to forgive her. Then Surya said, It is because I consider thee a girl, Kunti, that I am speaking to thee so mildly. To one that is not so I would not concede this. Do thou, Kunti, surrender thyself. Thou shalt surely attain happiness thereby. Since, timid maiden, thou hast invoked me with mantras, it is not proper for me to go away without any purpose being attained. For if I do so, I shall then, thou of faultless limbs, be the object of laughter in the world, and beauteous damsel, a byword with all the celestials. Do thou therefore yield to me. By that thou shalt obtain a son even like myself, and thou shalt also be much praised in all the world. Thus ends the 304th section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 305, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, although that noble girl addressed him in various sweet words, Yet she was unable to dissuade that deity of 1,000 rays. And when she failed to dissuade the dispeller of darkness, at last from fear of a curse, she reflected, King, for a long time. How may my innocent father and that Brahmana also escape the angry Surya's curse for my sake? Although energy and asceticism are capable of destroying sins, yet even honest persons, if they be of unripe age, should not foolishly court them. By foolishly acting in that way I have today been placed in a frightful situation. Indeed, I have been placed entirely within the grasp of this deity. Yet how can I do what is sinful by taking it on myself to surrender my person to him? Vaisampayana continued, afflicted with fear of a curse, and thinking much within herself, an utter stupefaction of the senses came upon her. And she was so confounded that she could not settle what to do. Afraid on the one hand, King, of the reproach of friends if she obeyed the deity, and on the other of his curse if she disobeyed him, the damsel at last, foremost of kings, said these words unto that god in accents tremulous with bashfulness, O God, as my father and mother and friends are still living, this violation of duty on my part should not take place. If God, I commit this unlawful act with thee, the reputation of this race shall be sacrificed in this world on my account. If thou, however, O thou foremost of those that impart heed, deem this to be a meritorious act, I shall then fulfill thy desire even though my relatives may not have bestowed me on thee. May I remain chaste after having surrendered my person to thee. Surely, the virtue, the reputation, the fame, and the life of every creature are established in thee. Hearing these words of hers, Surya replied, O thou of sweet smiles, neither thy father nor thy mother, nor any other superior of thine, is competent to give thee away. May good betide thee, O beauteous damsel. Do thou listen to my words. It is because a virgin desireth the company of every one that she hath received the appellation of Kanya, from the root kama meaning to desire. Therefore thou of excellent hips and the fairest complexion, a virgin is by nature free in this world. Thou shalt not, O lady, by any means be guilty of any sin by complying with my request. And how can I, who am desirous of the welfare of all creatures, commit an unrighteous act? That all men and women should be bound by no restraints, is the law of nature. The opposite condition is the perversion of the natural state. Thou shalt remain a virgin after having gratified me. And thy son shall also be mighty armed and illustrious. Thereupon Kunti said, If dispeller of darkness I obtain a son from thee, may he be furnished with a coat of mail and earrings, and may he be mighty armed and endued with great strength. Hearing these words of hers, Surya answered, O gentle maiden, thy son shall be mighty armed and decked with earrings and a celestial coat of mail. And both his earrings and coat of mail will be made of Amrita, and his coat will also be invulnerable. Kunti then said, If the excellent mail and earrings of the son thou wilt beget on me be indeed made of Amrita, then, O God, O worshipful deity, let thy purpose be fulfilled. May he be powerful, strong, energetic, and handsome, even like thee, and may he also be endued with virtue. Surya then said, O princess, O excellent damsel, these earrings had been given to me by Aditi. O timid lady, I will bestow them as also this excellent mail on thy son. Kunti then said, Very well, O worshipful one. If my son, Lord of Light, becomes so, I will as thou sayest gratify thee. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of hers, Surya said, So be it. And that ranger of the skies, that enemy of Swabhanu, with soul absorbed in yoga, entered into Kunti, and touched her on the navel. At this that damsel on account of Surya's energy became stupefied. And that reverend lady then fell down on her bed, deprived of her senses. Surya then addressed her saying, I will now depart, thou of graceful hips. Thou shalt bring forth a son who will become the foremost of all wielders of weapons. At the same time thou shalt remain a virgin. Vaisampayana continued, then foremost of kings, as the highly effulgent Surya was about to depart, that girl bashfully said unto him, so be it. And it was thus that the daughter of King Kuntibhoja, importuned by Surya, had after soliciting a son from him, fallen down stupefied on that excellent bed, like a broken creeper. And it was thus that deity of fierce race, stupefying her, entered into her by virtue of yoga power, and placed his own self within her womb. The deity however did not sully her by deflowering her in the flesh. And after Surya had gone away, that girl regained her consciousness. Thus ends the 305th section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 306, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, it was, O Lord of Earth, on the first day of the lighted fortnight during the 10th month of the year that Pritha conceived a son like the Lord himself of the stars in the firmament. And that damsel of excellent hips, from fear of her friends, concealed her conception, so that no one knew her condition. And as the damsel lived entirely in the apartments assigned to the maidens and carefully concealed her condition, no one except her nurse knew the truth. And in due time that beauteous maiden, by the grace of deity, brought forth a son resembling a very god. And even like his father, the child was equipped in a coat of mail, and decked with brilliant earrings. And he was possessed of leonine eyes and shoulders like those of a bull. And no sooner was the beauteous girl delivered of a child, than she consulted with her nurse and placed the infant in a commodious and smooth box made of wicker work and spread over with soft sheets and furnished with a costly pillow. And its surface was laid over with wax, and it was encased in a rich cover. And with tears in her eyes, she carried the infant to the river Aswa, and consigned the basket to its waters. And although she knew it to be improper for an unmarried girl to bear offspring, yet from parental affection, O foremost of kings, she wept piteously. Do thou listen to the words Kunti weepingly uttered, while consigning the box to the waters of the river Aswa. O child, may good betide thee at the hands of all that inhabit the land, the water, the sky, and the celestial regions. May all thy paths be auspicious. May no one obstruct thy way. And, O son, may all that come across thee have their hearts divested of hostility towards thee. And may that Lord of waters, Varuna, protect thee in water. And may the deity that rangeth the skies completely protect thee in the sky. And may, O son, that best of those that impart heat, viz., Surya, thy father, and from whom I have obtained thee as ordained by destiny, protect thee everywhere. And may the Adityas and the Vasus, the Rudras and the Sadyas, the Viswadevas and the Maruths, and the cardinal points with the great Indra and the regents presiding over them, and indeed, all the celestials protect thee in every place. Even in foreign lands I shall be able to recognize thee by this mail of thine. Surely thy sire, son, the divine Surya possessed of the wealth of splendor is blessed, for he will with his celestial sight behold thee going down the current. Blessed also is that lady who will, thou that art begotten by a god, take thee for her son, and who will give thee suck when thou art thirsty. And what a lucky dream hath been dreamt by her that will adopt thee for her son, thee that is endued with solar splendor, and furnished with celestial mail, and adorned with celestial earrings, thee that hast expansive eyes resembling lotuses, a complexion bright as burnished copper or lotus leaves, a fair forehead, and hair ending in beautiful curls. Son, she that will behold thee crawl on the ground, begrimed with dust, and sweetly uttering inarticulate words, is surely blessed. And she also, O son, that will behold thee arrive at thy youthful prime like a maned lion born in Himalayan forests, is surely blessed. O king, Having thus bewailed long and piteously, Pritha laid the basket on the waters of the river Aswa. And the lotus-eyed damsel, afflicted with grief on account of her son and weeping bitterly with her nurse, cast the basket at dead of night, and though desirous of beholding her son often and again, returned, O monarch, to the palace, fearing lest her father should come to know of what had happened. Meanwhile, the basket floated from the river Aswa to the river Chamanvati, and from the Chamanvati it passed to the Yamuna, and so on to the Ganga. And carried by the waves of the Ganga, the child contained in the basket came to the city of Champa, ruled by a person of the Sutha tribe. Indeed, the excellent coat of mail and those earrings made of Amrita that were born with his body, as also the ordinance of destiny, kept the child alive. Thus ends the 306th section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 307, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, and it came to pass that at this time a Sutha named Adiratha, who was a friend of Dhritarashtra, came to the river Ganga accompanied by his wife. And king, his wife named Radha, was unparalleled on earth for beauty. And although that highly blessed dame had made great endeavours to obtain a son, yet she had failed, O represser of foes, to obtain one. And on coming to the river Ganga she beheld a box drifting along the current, and containing articles capable of protecting from dangers and decked with unguents. That box was brought before her by the waves of the Janhavi. And attracted by curiosity, the lady caused it to be seized. And she then related all unto Adiratha of the charioteer caste. And hearing this, Adiratha took away the box from the waterside and opened it by means of instruments. And then he beheld a boy resembling the morning sun. And the infant was furnished with golden mail and looked exceedingly beautiful, with a face decked in earrings. And thereupon the charioteer together with his wife was struck with such astonishment that their eyes expanded in wonder. And taking the infant on his lap, Adiratha said unto his wife, Ever since I was born, O timid lady, I had never seen such a wonder. This child that hath come to us must be of celestial birth. Surely sonless as I am, it is the gods that have sent him unto me. Saying this, Lord of earth, he gave the infant to Radha. And thereat, Radha adopted, according to the ordinance, that child of celestial form and divine origin, and possessed of the splendor of the filaments of the lotus and furnished with excellent grace. And duly reared by her, that child endued with great prowess began to grow up. And after Karna's adoption, Adiratha had other sons begotten by himself. And seeing the child furnished with bright mail and golden earrings, the twice-born ones named him Vasyusena. And thus did that child endued with great splendor and immeasurable prowess became the son of the charioteer and come to be known as Vasyusena and Drisha. And Pritha learned through spies that her own son clad in celestial mail was growing up amongst the Angas as the eldest son of a charioteer Adiratha. And seeing that in process of time his son had grown up, Adiratha sent him to the city named after the elephant. And there Karna put up with Drona for the purpose of learning arms. And that powerful youth contracted a friendship with Duryodhana. And having acquired all the four kinds of weapons from Drona, Kripa, and Rama, he became famous in the world as a mighty bowman. And after having contracted a friendship with Dhritarashtra's son, he became intent on injuring the sons of Pritha. And he was always desirous of fighting with the high-souled Falguna. And, O king, ever since they first saw each other, Karna always used to challenge Arjuna, and Arjuna, on his part, used to challenge him. This, foremost of kings, was without doubt the secret known to the son, viz., begot by himself on Kunti. Karna was being reared in the race of the Suthas. And beholding him decked with his earrings and mail, Yudhisthira thought him to be unslayable in fight, and was exceedingly pained at it. And when, foremost of monarchs, Karna after rising from the water, used at midday to worship the effulgent Surya with joined hands, the Brahmanas used to solicit him for wealth. And at that time there was nothing that he would not give away to the twice-born ones. And Indra, assuming the guise of a Brahmana, appeared before him at such a time and said, "Give me." And thereupon Radha's son replied unto him, "Thou art welcome." Thus ends the 307th section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 308, Kundalaharana Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, and when the king of the celestials presented himself in the guise of a Brahmana, beholding him, Karna said, "Welcome." And not knowing his intention, Adiratha's son addressed the Brahmana, saying, "Of a necklace of gold and beauteous damsels and villages with plenty of kin, which shall I give thee?" Thereupon the Brahmana replied, "I ask thee not to give me either a necklace of gold, or fair damsels, or any other agreeable object. To those do thou give them that ask for them. If, sinless one, thou art sincere in thy vow, then wilt thou, cutting off from thy person this coat of mail borne with thy body, and these earrings also bestow them on me. I desire, chastiser of foes, that thou mayst speedily give me these, for this one gain of mine will be considered as superior to every other gain." Hearing these words, Karna said, "O Brahmana, I will give thee homestead land and fair damsels and kin and fields, but my mail and earrings I am unable to give thee." Vaisampayana continued, although thus urged with various words by Karna, still, O chief of the Bharata race, that Brahmana did not ask for any other boon. And although Karna sought to pacify him to the best of his power and worshipped him duly, yet that best of Brahmanas did not ask for any other boon. And when that foremost of Brahmanas did not ask for any other boon, Radha's son again spake unto him with a smile, "My male, regenerate one, hath been born with my body, and this pair of earrings hath arisen from Amrita. It is for these that I am unslayable in the worlds. Therefore I cannot part with them. Do thou, O bull among Brahmanas, accept from me the entire kingdom of the earth, rid of enemies and full of prosperity. Foremost of regenerate ones, if I am deprived of my earrings, and the male born with my body, I shall be liable to be vanquished by the foes." Vaisampayana continued, when the illustrious slayer of Paka refused to ask for any other boon, Karna with a smile again addressed him, saying, "O God of gods, even before this, I had recognized thee, Lord. O Sakra, it is not proper for me to confer on thee any unprofitable boon, for thou art the very Lord of the celestials. On the contrary, being as thou art the Creator and Lord of all beings, it is thou that shouldst confer boons on me. If God, I give thee this coat of mail and earrings, then I am sure to meet with destruction, and thou shalt also undergo ridicule. Therefore Sakra, take my earrings and excellent mail in exchange for something conferred by thee on me. Otherwise I will not bestow them on thee." Thereupon Sakra replied, "Even before I had come to thee, Surya had known of my purpose, and without doubt it is he that hath unfolded everything unto thee. O Karna, be it as thou wishest. O son, except the thunderbolt alone, tell me what it is that thou desirest to have." Vaisampayana continued, hearing these words of Indra, Karna was filled with delight, and seeing that his purpose was about to be accomplished, he approached Vasava, and intent upon obtaining a darting capable of being baffled, he addressed Indra, saying, "Do thou, Vasava, in exchange for my coat of mail and earrings, give me a darting capable of being baffled and competent to destroy hosts of enemies when arrayed in order of battle." Thereupon, ruler of earth, fixing his mind for a moment on the dart for bringing it there, Vasava thus spake unto Karna, "Do thou give me thy earrings, and the coat of mail born with thy body, and in return take this dart on these terms. When I encounter the Daitya in battle, this dart that is incapable of being baffled, hurled by my hand, destroy its enemies by hundreds and come it back to my hand after achieving its purpose. In thy hand, however, this dart, son of Sutha, will slay only one powerful enemy of thine. And having achieved that feat it will, roaring and blazing, return to me. Thereat Karna said, I desire to slay in fierce fight even one enemy of mine, who roareth fiercely and is hot as fire and of whom I am in fear. At this Indra said, Thou shalt slay such a roaring and powerful foe in battle. But that one whom thou seekest to slay is protected by an illustrious personage. Even he whom persons versed in the Veds call the invincible boar, and the incomprehensible Narayana, even that Krishna himself is protecting him. Thereupon Karna replied, Even if this be so, do thou, illustrious one, give me the weapon that will destroy only one powerful foe. I shall on my part bestow on thee my mail and earrings, cutting them off my person. Do thou however grant that my body thus wounded may not be unsightly. Hearing this, Indra said, As thou, Karna, art bent upon observing the truth, thy person shall not be unsightly, nor shall any scar remain on it. And O thou best of those that are graced with speech, Karna, thou shalt be possessed of complexion and energy of thy father himself. And if maddened by wrath, thou hurlest this dart, while there are still other weapons with thee, and when thy life also is not in imminent peril, it will fall even on thyself. Karna answered, As thou directest me, O Sakra, I shall hurl this Vasavi dart only when I am in imminent peril. Truly I tell thee this. Vaisampayana continued, Thereupon king, taking the blazing dart, Karna began to peel off his natural mail. And beholding Karna cutting his own body, the entire host of celestials and men and Danavas set up a leonine roar. And Karna betrayed no contortions of face while peeling his mail. And beholding that hero among men thus cutting his body with a weapon, smiling over and anon, celestial kettle drums began to be played upon and celestial flowers began to be showered on him. And Karna, cutting off the excellent mail from his person, gave it to Vasava still dripping. And cutting off his earrings also from off his ears, he made them over to Indra. And it is for this fact that he came to be called Karna. And Sakra, having thus beguiled Karna that made him famous in the world, thought with a smile that the business of the sons of Pandu had already been completed. And having done all this, he ascended to heaven. And hearing that Karna had been beguiled, all the sons of Dhritarashtra became distressed and shorn of pride. And the sons of Pritha, on the other hand, learning that such plight had befallen the son of the charioteer, were filled with joy. Janamejaya said, Where were those heroes, the sons of Pandu, at that time? And from whom did they hear this welcome news? And what also did they do, when the 12th year of their exile passed away? Do thou, illustrious one, tell me all this. Vaisampayana said, Having defeated the chief of the Sendavas and rescued Krishna, and having outlived the entire term of their painful exile in the woods, and having listened to the ancient stories about gods and rishis recited by Markandeya, those heroes among men returned from their asylum in Kamyaka to the sacred Dvaitavana, with all their cars and followers, and accompanied by their charioteers, their kin and the citizens who had followed them. Thus ends the 308th section in the Kundalaharana Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 309, Aranaya Parva. Janamejaya said, Having felt great affliction on account of the abduction of their wife and having rescued Krishna thereafter, what did the Pandavas next do? Vaisampayana said, Having felt great affliction on account of the abduction of Krishna, King Yudhisthira of unfading glory with his brothers, left the woods of Kamyaka and returned to the delightful and picturesque Dvaitavana abounding in trees and containing delicious fruits and roots. And the sons of Pandu with their wife Krishna began to reside there, living frugally on fruits and practicing rigid vows. And while those repressors of foes, the virtuous king Yudhisthira, the son of Kunti, and Bhimasena, and Arjuna, and those other sons of Pandu born of Madri, were dwelling in Dvaitavana, practicing rigid vows. They underwent, for the sake of a Brahmana, great trouble, which however was destined to bring about their future happiness. I will tell thee all about the trouble which those foremost of Gurus underwent while living in those woods, and which in the end brought about their happiness. Do thou listen to it. Once on a time, as a deer was butting about, it chanced that the two sticks for making fire and a churning staff belonging to a Brahmana devoted to ascetic austerities, struck fast into its antlers. And thereupon, O king, that powerful deer of exceeding fleetness with long bounds speedily went out of the hermitage, taking those articles away. And, O foremost of Gurus, seeing those articles of his thus carried away, the Brahmana, anxious on account of his Agnihotra, quickly came before the Pandavas. And approaching without loss of time Ajatasatru seated in that forest with his brothers, the Brahmana in great distress spake these words, as a deer was butting about, it happened, O king, that my fire sticks and churning staff which had been placed against a large tree stuck fast to its antlers. O king, that powerful deer of exceeding fleetness hath speedily gone out of the hermitage with long bounds, taking those articles away. Tracking that powerful deer, O king, by its footprints do ye sons of Pandu, bring back those articles of mine, so that my Agnihotra may not be stopped. Hearing these words of the Brahmana, Yudhisthira became exceedingly concerned. And the son of Kunti, taking up his bow, sallied out with his brothers. And putting on their corselets and equipped with their bows, those bulls among men, intent upon serving the Brahmana, swiftly sallied out in the wake of the deer. And descrying the deer at no great distance, those mighty warriors discharged at it barbed arrows and javelins and darts, but the sons of Pandu could not pierce it by any means. And as they struggled to pursue and slay it, that powerful deer became suddenly invisible. And losing sight of the deer, the noble-minded sons of Pandu, fatigued and disappointed and afflicted with hunger and thirst, approached a banyan tree in that deep forest and sat down in its cool shade. And when they had sat down, Nakula, stricken with sorrow and urged by impatience, addressed his eldest brother of the Kuru race, saying, In our race, O king, virtue hath never been sacrificed, nor hath there been loss of wealth from insolence. And being asked, we have never said to any creature, Nay. Why then in the present case have we met with this disaster? Thus ends the 309th section in the Aranaya Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 310, Aranaya Parva continued. Yudhisthira said, There is no limit to calamities. Nor is it possible to ascertain either their final or efficient cause. It is the Lord of Justice alone who distributeth the fruits of both virtue and vice. Thereupon Bhima said, Surely, this calamity hath befallen us because I did not slay the Pratikamin on the very spot when he dragged Krishna as a slave into the assembly. And Arjuna said, Surely this calamity hath befallen us because I resented not those biting words piercing the very bones, uttered by the Suta's son. And Sahadeva said, Surely, O Bharata, this calamity hath befallen us because I did not slay Sakuni when he defeated the Addais. Vaisampayana continued, Then King Yudhisthira addressed Nakula, saying, Do thou, O son of Madri, climb this tree and look around the 10 points of the horizon. Do thou see whether there is water near us or such trees as grow on watery grounds. O child, these thy brothers are all fatigued and thirsty. Thereupon saying, So be it, Nakula speedily climbed up a tree, and having looked around said unto his eldest brother, O king, I see many a tree that groweth by the waterside, and I hear also the cries of cranes. Therefore, without doubt water must be somewhere here. Hearing these words, Kunti's son Yudhisthira, firm in truth, said, O amiable one, Go thou and fetch water in these quivers. Saying, so be it, at the command of his eldest brother Nakula quickly proceeded towards the place where there was water and soon came upon it. And beholding a crystal lake inhabited by cranes, he desired to drink of it. When he heard these words from the sky, O child, do not commit this rash act. This lake hath already been in my possession. Do thou, O son of Madri, first answer my questions and then drink of this water and take away as much as thou requirest. Nakula, however, who was exceedingly thirsty, disregarding these words drank of the cool water, and having drunk of it, dropped down dead. And, O represser of foes, seeing Nakula's delay, Yudhisthira the son of Kunti said unto Sahadeva, the heroic brother of Nakula, O Sahadeva, it is long since our brother, he who was born immediately before thee, hath gone from hence. Do thou therefore go and bring back thy uterine brother, together with water. At this Sahadeva, saying, so be it, set out in that direction, and coming to the spot, beheld his brother lying dead on the ground. And afflicted at the death of his brother and suffering severely from thirst, he advanced towards the water. When these words were heard by him, O child, do not commit this rash act. This lake hath already been in my possession. First answer my question, and then drink of the water and take away as much as thou mayst require. Sahadeva, however, who was extremely thirsty, disregarding these words drank of the water, and having drunk of it dropped down dead. Then Yudhisthira, the son of Kunti, said unto Vijaya, it is long since, O Vibhatsu, that thy two brothers have gone, O represser of foes. Blessed be thou. Do thou bring them back, together with water. Thou art, O child, the refuge of us all when plunged in distress. Thus addressed, the intelligent Gudakesa, taking his bow and arrows and also his naked sword, set out for that lake of waters. And reaching that spot, he whose car was drawn by white steeds beheld those tigers among men, his two younger brothers who had come to fetch water, lying dead there. And seeing them as if asleep, that lion among men, exceedingly aggrieved, raised his bow and began to look around that wood. But he found none in that mighty forest. And being fatigued, he who was capable of drawing the bow by his left hand as well rushed in the direction of the water. And as he was rushing towards the water, he heard these words from the sky, why dost thou approach this water? Thou shalt not be able to drink of it by force. If thou, O Kaunteya, can answer the question I will put to thee, then only shalt thou drink of the water and take away as much as thou requirest, O Bharata. Thus forbidden, the son of Pritha said, do thou forbid me by appearing before me. And when thou shalt be sorely pierced with my arrows, thou wilt not then again speak in this way. Having said this, Partha covered all sides with arrows inspired by mantras, and he also displayed his skill in shooting at an invisible mark by sound alone. And O bull of the Bharata race, sorely afflicted with thirst, he discharged barbed darts and javelins and iron arrows and showered on the sky innumerable shafts incapable of being baffled. Thereupon, the invisible Yaksha said, what need of all this trouble, O son of Pritha? Do thou drink only after answering my questions. If thou drink, however, without answering my questions, thou shalt die immediately after. Thus addressed, Pritha's son Dhananjaya, capable of drawing the bow with his left hand as well, disregarding those words, drank of the water and immediately after dropped down dead. And seeing Dhananjaya's delay, Kunti's son Yudhisthira addressed Bhimasena, saying, O represser of foes, it is a long while that Nakula and Sahadeva and Vibhatsu have gone to fetch water, and they have not come yet, O Bharata. Good betide thee. Do thou bring them back, together with water. Thereupon saying, so be it, Bhimasena set out for that place where those tigers among men, his brothers, lay dead. And beholding them, Bhima, afflicted though he was with thirst, was exceedingly distressed. And that mighty armed hero thought all that to have been the act of some yaksha or rakshasa. And Pritha's son Vrikodara thought, I shall surely have to fight today. Let me therefore first appease my thirst. Then that bull of the Bharata race rushed forward with the intention of drinking. Thereupon the yaksha said, O child, do not commit this rash act. This lake hath already been in my possession. Do thou first answer my questions, and then drink and take away as much water as thou requirest. Vaisampayana continued, thus addressed by that yaksha of immeasurable energy, Bhima, without answering his questions, drank of the water. And as soon as he drank, he fell down dead on the spot. Then thinking that his brothers had left him long since, Yudhisthira waited for some time. And the king said unto himself again and again, why is it that the two sons of Madri are delaying? And why doth the wielder also of the Gandiva delay? And why doth Bhima too, endued with great strength, delay? I shall go to search for them. And resolved to do this, the mighty armed Yudhisthira then rose up, his heart burning in grief. And that bull among men, the royal son of Kunti, thought within himself, is this forest under some malign influence? Or is it infested by some wicked beasts? Or have they all fallen in consequence of having disregarded some mighty being? Or not finding water in the spot whither those heroes had first repaired, they have spent all this time in search through the forest? What is that reason for which those bulls among men do not come back? And speaking in this strain, that foremost of monarchs, the illustrious Yudhisthira, entered into that mighty forest where no human sound was heard, and which was inhabited by deer and bears and birds, and which was adorned with trees that were bright and green, and which echoed with the hum of the black bee and the notes of winged warblers. As he was proceeding along, he beheld that beautiful lake which looked as if it had been made by the celestial artificer himself. And it was adorned with flowers of a golden hue, and with lotuses and sinduvas. And it abounded with canes and ketkas and curviras and pipalas, and fatigued with toil, Yudhisthira saw that tank and was struck with wonder. Thus ends the 310th section in the Aranaya Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 311, Aranaya Parva continued. Vaisampayana said, Yudhisthira saw his brothers, each possessed of the glory of Indra himself, lying dead like the regents of the world dropped from their spheres at the end of the Yuga. And beholding Arjuna lying dead, with his bow and arrows dropped on the ground, and also Bhimasena and the twins motionless and deprived of life, the king breathed a hot and long sigh, and was bathed in tears of grief. And beholding his brothers lying dead, the mighty armed son of Dharma, with heart racked in anxiety, began to lament profusely, saying, Thou hadst, O mighty armed Vrikodara, vowed, saying, I shall with mace smash the thighs of Duryodhana in battle. O enhancer of the glory of the Kurus, in thy death, O mighty armed and high-souled one, all that hath become fruitless now. The promises of men may be ineffectual, but why have the words of the gods uttered in respect of thee been thus fruitless? O Dhananjaya, while thou wert in thy mother's lying in ruin, the gods had said, Kunti, this thy son shall not be inferior to him of 1,000 eyes. And in the northern Paripatra mountains, all beings had sung, saying, the prosperity of this race, robbed by force, will be recovered by this one without delay. No one will be able to vanquish him in battle, while there will be none whom he will not be able to vanquish. Why then hath that Jishnu endued with great strength been subject to death? Oh, why doth that Dhananjaya, relying on whom we had hitherto endured all this misery, lie on the ground blighting all my hopes? Why have those heroes, those mighty sons of Kunti, Bhimasena and Dhananjaya, come under the power of the enemy, those who themselves always slew their foes, and whom no weapons could resist? Surely, This vile heart of mine must be made of adamant, since, beholding these twins lying today on the ground, it doth not split. Ye bulls among men, versed in holy writ and acquainted with the properties of time and place, and endued with ascetic merit, ye who duly performed all sacred rites, why lie ye down without performing acts deserving of you? Alas, why lie ye insensible on the earth, with your bodies unwounded, ye unvanquished ones, and with your woes untouched? And beholding his brothers sweetly sleeping there as they usually did on mountain slopes, the high-souled king, overwhelmed with grief and bathed in sweat, came to a distressful condition. And saying, "It is even so," that virtuous lord of men, immersed in an ocean of grief, anxiously proceeded to ascertain the cause of that catastrophe. And that mighty armed and high-souled one, acquainted with the divisions of time and place, could not settle his course of action. Having thus bewailed much in this strain, the virtuous Yudhisthira, the son of Dharma or Tapa, restrained his soul and began to reflect in his mind as to who had slain those heroes. There are no strokes of weapons upon these, nor is any one's footprint here. The being must be mighty, I ween, by whom my brothers have been slain. Earnestly shall I ponder over this, or, let me first drink of the water, and then know all. It may be that the habitually crooked-minded Duryodhana hath caused this water to be secretly placed here by the king of the Gandharvas. What man of sense can trust wicked wight of evil passions with whom good and evil are alike? Or, perhaps, this may be an act of that wicked-souled one through secret messengers of his. And it was thus that that highly intelligent one gave way to diverse reflections. He did not believe that water to have been tainted with poison, for though dead no corpse-like pallor was on them. The color on the faces of these my brothers hath not faded. And it was thus that Yudhisthira thought. And the king continued, each of these foremost of men was like unto a mighty cataract. Who therefore, save Yama himself, who in due time bringeth about the end of all things, could have baffled them thus? And having concluded this for certain, he began to perform his ablutions in that lake. And while he descended into it, he heard these words from the sky, uttered by the Yaksha, I am a crane, living on tiny fish. It is by me that thy younger brothers have been brought under the sway of the Lord of departed spirits. If thou, O prince, answer not the questions put by me, even thou shalt number the fifth corpse. Do not, O child, act rashly. This lake hath already been in my possession. Having answered my questions first, do thou, O Kunti's son, drink and carry away as much as thou requirest. Hearing these words, Yudhisthira said, Art thou the foremost of the Rudras, or of the Vasus, or of the Mayutas? I ask, what god art thou? This could not have been done by a bird. Who is it that hath overthrown the four mighty mountains, viz., the Himavat, the Paripatra, the Vindhya, and the Malaya? Great is the feat done by thee, thou foremost of strong persons. Those whom neither gods, nor Gandharvas, nor Asuras, nor Rakshasas could endure in mighty conflict, have been slain by thee. Therefore exceedingly wonderful is the deed done by thee. I do not know what thy business may be, nor do I know thy purpose. Therefore great is the curiosity and fear also that have taken possession of me. My mind is greatly agitated, and as my head also is aching, I ask thee therefore, O worshipful one, who art thou that stayest here? Hearing these words, the Yaksha said, I am, good but I thee, a Yaksha, and not an amphibious bird. It is by me that all these brothers of thine, endued with mighty prowess, have been slain. Vaisampayana continued, hearing these accursed words couched in harsh syllables, Yudhisthira, O king, approaching the Yaksha who had spoken, then stood there. And that bull among the Bharatas then beheld that Yaksha of unusual eyes and huge body, tall like a palmyra palm and looking like fire or the sun, and irresistible and gigantic like a mountain, staying on a tree and uttering a loud roar deep as that of the clouds. And the Yaksha said, "These thy brothers, O king, repeatedly forbidden by me, would forcibly take away water. It is for this that they have been slain by me. He that wisheth to live should not, O king, drink this water. O son of Pritha, act not rashly. This lake hath already been in my possession. Do thou, O son of Kunti, first answer my questions and then take away as much as thou likest." Yudhisthira said, "I do not, O Yaksha, covet what is already in thy possession. O bull among male beings, virtuous persons never approve that one should applaud his own self. Without boasting, I shall therefore answer thy questions according to my intelligence. Do thou ask me." The Yaksha then said, "What is it that maketh the sun rise? Who keeps him company? Who causeth him to set? And in whom is he established?" Yudhisthira answered, "Brahma maketh the sun rise, the gods keep him company, Dharma causeth him to set, and he is established in truth." The Yaksha asked, "By what doth one become learned? By what doth he attain what is very great? How can one have a second? And O king, how can one acquire intelligence?" Yudhisthira answered, "It is by the study of the Shrutis that a person becometh learned, it is by ascetic austerities that one acquireth what is very great, it is by intelligence that a person acquireth a second, and it is by serving the old that one becometh wise." The Yaksha asked, "What constituteth the divinity of the Brahmanas? What even is their practice that is like that of the pious? What also is the human attribute of the Brahmanas? And what practice of theirs is like that of the impious?" Yudhisthira answered, "The study of the Vedas constitutes their divinity, their asceticism constitutes behavior that is like that of the pious, their liability to death is their human attribute, and slander is their impiety." The Yaksha asked, "What institutes the divinity of the Kshatriyas? What even is their practice that is like that of the pious? What is their human attribute? And what practice of theirs is like that of the impious?" Yudhisthira answered, "Arrows and weapons are their divinity, celebration of sacrifices is that act which is like that of the pious, liability to fear is their human attribute, and refusal of protection is that act of theirs which is like that of the impious." The Yaksha asked, "What is that which constitutes the summa of the sacrifice? What the yajus of the sacrifice? What is that which is the refuge of a sacrifice? And what is that which sacrifice cannot do without?" Yudhisthira answered, "Life is the summa of the sacrifice, the mind is the yajus of the sacrifice, the rik is that which is the refuge of the sacrifice, and it is rik alone which sacrifice cannot do without." The Yaksha asked, "What is of the foremost value to those that cultivate? What is of the foremost value to those that sow? What is of the foremost value to those that wish for prosperity in this world? And what is of the foremost value to those that bring forth?" Yudhisthira answered, "That which is of the foremost value to those that cultivate is rain, that of the foremost value to those that sow is seed, that of the foremost value to those that bring forth is offspring." The Yaksha asked, "What person, enjoying all the objects of the senses, endued with intelligence, regarded by the world and liked by all beings, though breathing, doth not offer anything to these five, viz., gods, guests, servants, P3s, and himself, though endued with breath, is not yet alive?" The Yaksha asked, "What is greater than the earth itself? What is higher than the heavens? What is fleeter than the wind? And what is more numerous than grass?" Yudhisthira answered, "The mother is weightier than the earth, the father is higher than the heaven, the mind is fleeter than the wind, and our thoughts are more numerous than grass." The Yaksha asked, "What is that which doth not close its eyes while asleep, What is that which doth not move after birth? What is that which is without heart? And what is that which swells with its own impetus? Yudhishthira answered, a fish doth not close its eyes while asleep, an egg doth not move after birth, a stone is without heart, and a river swelleth with its own impetus. The Yaksha asked, who is the friend of the exile? Who is the friend of the householder? Who is the friend of him that ails? And who is the friend of one about to die? Yudhishthira answered, the friend of the exile in a distant land is his companion, the friend of the householder is the wife, the friend of him that ails is the physician, and the friend of him about to die is charity. The Yaksha asked, who is the guest of all creatures? What is the eternal duty? What, O foremost of kings, is Amrita? And what is this entire universe? Yudhishthira answered, Agni is the guest of all creatures, the milk of kin is Amrita, Homadevit is the eternal duty, and this universe consists of air alone. The Yaksha asked, what is that which sojourneth alone? What is that which is reborn after its birth? What is the remedy against cold? And what is the largest field? Yudhishthira answered, the sun sojourneth alone, the moon takes birth anew, fire is the remedy against cold, and the earth is the largest field. The Yaksha asked, what is the highest refuge of virtue? What of fame? What of heaven? And what of happiness? Yudhishthira answered, liberality is the highest refuge of virtue, gift, of fame, truth, of heaven, and good behavior, of happiness. The Yaksha asked, what is the soul of man? Who is that friend bestowed on man by the gods? What is man's chief support? And what also is his chief refuge? Yudhishthira answered, the sun is a man's soul, the wife is the friend bestowed on man by the gods, the clouds are his chief support, and gift is his chief refuge. The Yaksha asked, what is the best of all laudable things? What is the most valuable of all his possessions? What is the best of all gains? And what is the best of all kinds of happiness? Yudhishthira answered, the best of all laudable things is skill, the best of all possessions is knowledge, the best of all gains is health, and contentment is the best of all kinds of happiness. The Yaksha asked, what is the highest duty in the world? What is that virtue which always beareth fruit? What is that which if controlled, leadeth not to regret? And who are they with whom an alliance cannot break? Yudhishthira answered, the highest of duties is to refrain from injury, the rites ordained in the three Veds always bear fruit, the mind, if controlled, leadeth to no regret, and an alliance with the good never breaketh. The Yaksha asked, what is that which, if renounced, maketh one agreeable? What is that which, if renounced, leadeth to no regret? What is that which, if renounced, maketh one wealthy? And what is that which if renounced, maketh one happy? Yudhishthira answered, pride, if renounced, maketh one agreeable, wrath, if renounced leadeth to no regret, desire, if renounced, maketh one wealthy, and avarice, if renounced, maketh one happy. The Yaksha asked, for what doth one give away to Brahmanas? For what to mimes and dancers? For what to servants? And for what to king? Yudhishthira answered, it is for religious merit that one giveth away to Brahmanas, it is for fame that one giveth away to mimes and dancers, it is for supporting them that one giveth away to servants, and it is for obtaining relief from fear that one giveth to kings. The Yaksha asked, with what is the world enveloped? What is that owing to which a thing cannot discover itself? For what are friends forsaken? And for what doth one fail to go to heaven? Yudhishthira answered, the world is enveloped with darkness. Darkness doth not permit a thing to show itself. It is from avarice that friends are forsaken. and it is connection with the world for which one faileth to go to heaven. The Yaksha asked, for what may one be considered as dead? For what may a kingdom be considered as dead? For what may a Shraddha be considered as dead? And for what, a sacrifice? Yudhishthira answered, for want of wealth may a man be regarded as dead. A kingdom for want of a king may be regarded as dead. A Shraddha that is performed with the aid of a priest that hath no learning may be regarded as dead. And a sacrifice in which there are no gifts to Brahmanas is dead. The Yaksha asked, what constitutes the way? What hath been spoken of as water? What, as food? And what, as poison? Tell us also what is the proper time of a Shraddha, and then drink and take away as much as thou likest. Yudhishthira answered, they that are good constitute the way. Space hath been spoken of as water. The cow is food. A request is poison, and a Brahmana is regarded as the proper time of a Shraddha. I do not know what thou mayst think of all this, O Yaksha. The Yaksha asked, what hath been said to be the sign of asceticism? And what is true restraint? What constitutes forgiveness? And what is shame? Yudhishthira answered, staying in one's own religion is asceticism, the restraint of the mind is of all restraints the true one, forgiveness consists in enduring enmity, and shame, in withdrawing from all unworthy acts. The Yaksha asked, what, O king, is said to be knowledge? What, tranquility? What constitutes mercy? And what hath been called simplicity? Yudhishthira answered, true knowledge is that of divinity. True tranquility is that of the heart. Mercy consists in wishing happiness to all. And simplicity is equanimity of heart. The Yaksha asked, what enemy is invincible? What constitutes an incurable disease for man? What sort of a man is called honest and what dishonest? Yudhishthira answered, anger is an invincible enemy. Covetousness constitutes an incurable disease. He is honest that desires the weal of all creatures, and he is dishonest who is unmerciful. The Yaksha asked, what, O king, is ignorance? And what is pride? What also is to be understood by idleness? And what hath been spoken of as grief? Yudhishthira answered, true ignorance consists in not knowing one's duties. Pride is a consciousness of one's being himself an actor or sufferer in life. Idleness consists in not discharging one's duties, and ignorance in grief. The Yaksha asked, what hath steadiness been said by the rishis to be? And what, patience? What also is a real ablution? And what is charity? Yudhishthira answered, steadiness consists in one's staying in one's own religion, and true patience consists in the subjugation of the senses. A true bath consists in washing the mind clean of all impurities, and charity consists in protecting all creatures. The Yaksha asked, what man should be regarded as learned, and who should be called an atheist? Who also is to be called ignorant? What is called desire and what are the sources of desire? And what is envy? Yudhishthira answered, he is to be called learned who knoweth his duties. An atheist is he who is ignorant, and so also he is ignorant who is an atheist. Desire is due to objects of possession, and envy is nothing else than grief of heart. The Yaksha asked, what is pride, and what is hypocrisy? What is the grace of the gods, and what is wickedness? Yudhishthira answered, stolid ignorance is pride. The setting up of a religious standard is hypocrisy. The grace of the gods is the fruit of our gifts, and wickedness consists in speaking ill of others. The Yaksha asked, virtue, profit, and desire are opposed to one another. How could things thus antagonistic to one another exist together? Yudhishthira answered, when a wife and virtue agree with each other, then all the three thou hast mentioned may exist together. The Yaksha asked, O bull of the Bharata race, who is he that is condemned to everlasting hell? It behoveth thee to soon answer the question that I ask. Yudhisthira answered, He that summoneth a poor Brahmana promising to make him a gift and then tells him that he hath nothing to give, goeth to everlasting hell. He also must go to everlasting hell, who imputes falsehood to the Veds, the scriptures, the Brahmanas, the gods, and the ceremonies in honor of the Pitriya. He also goeth to everlasting hell who though in possession of wealth, never giveth away nor enjoyeth himself from avarice, saying, he hath none. The Yaksha asked, By what, O king, birth, behavior, study, or learning doth a person become a Brahmana? Tell us with certitude. Yudhisthira answered, Listen, O Yaksha. It is neither birth, nor study, nor learning, that is the cause of Brahmanahood. Without doubt, it is behavior that constitutes it. One's behavior should always be well guarded, especially by a Brahmana. He who maintaineth his conduct unimpaired, is never impaired himself. Professors and pupils, in fact, all who study the scriptures, if addicted to wicked habits, are to be regarded as illiterate wretches. He only is learned who performeth his religious duties. He even that hath studied the four Veds is to be regarded as a wicked wretch scarcely distinguishable from a Sudra, if his conduct be not correct. He only who performeth the Agnihotra and hath his senses under control, is called a Brahmana. The Yaksha asked, What doth one gain that speaketh agreeable words? What doth he gain that always acteth with judgment? What doth he gain that hath many friends? And what he that is devoted to virtue? Yudhisthira answered, He that speaketh agreeable words becometh agreeable to all. He that acteth with judgment obtaineth whatever he seeketh. He that hath many friends liveth happily. And he that is devoted to virtue obtaineth a happy state in the next world. The Yaksha asked, Who is truly happy? What is most wonderful? What is the path? And what is the news? Answer these 4 questions of mine and let thy dead brothers revive. Yudhisthira answered, O amphibious creature, a man who cooketh in his own house, on the 5th or the 6th part of the day, with scanty vegetables, but who is not in debt and who stirreth not from home, is truly happy. Day after day countless creatures are going to the abode of Yama, yet those that remain behind believe themselves to be immortal. What can be more wonderful than this? Argument leads to no certain conclusion, the Shrutis are different from one another, there is not even one rishi whose opinion can be accepted by all. The truth about religion and duty is hid in caves, therefore, that alone is the path along which the great have trod. This world full of ignorance is like a pan. The sun is fire, the days and nights are fuel. The months and the seasons constitute the wooden ladle. Time is the cook that is cooking all creatures in that pan with such aids. This is the news. The Yaksha asked, Thou hast, O repressor of force, truly answered all my questions. Tell us now who is truly a man, and what man truly possesseth every kind of wealth? Yudhisthira answered, The report of one's good action reacheth heaven and spreadeth over the earth. As long as that report lasteth, so long is a person to whom the agreeable, and the disagreeable, weal and woe, the past and the future, are the same, is said to possess every kind of wealth. The Yaksha said, Thou hast, O king, truly answered who is a man, and what man possesseth every kind of wealth. Therefore, let one only amongst thy brothers, whom thou mayst wish, get up with life. Yudhisthira answered, Let this one that is of darkish hue, whose eyes are red, who is tall like a large solar tree, whose chest is broad and arms long, let this Nakula, O Yaksha, get up with life. The Yaksha rejoined, This Bhimasena is dear unto thee, and this Arjuna also is one upon whom all of you depend. Why then, O king, dost thou wish a step-brother to get up with his life? How canst thou, forsaking Bhima, whose strength is equal to that of 10,000 elephants, wish Nakula to live? People said that this Bhima was dear to thee. From what motive then dost thou wish a step-brother to revive? Forsaking Arjuna, the might of whose arm is worshipped by all the sons of Pandu, why dost thou wish Nakula to revive? Yudhisthira said, if virtue is sacrificed, he that sacrificeth it, is himself lost. So virtue also cherisheth the cherisher. Therefore, taking care that virtue by being sacrificed may not sacrifice us, I never forsake virtue. Abstention from injury is the highest virtue and is, I ween, even higher than the highest object of attainment. I endeavor to practice that virtue. Therefore let Nakula, O Yaksha, revive. Let men know that the king is always virtuous. I will never depart from my duty. Let Nakula therefore revive. My father had 2 wives, Kunti and Madri. Let both of them have children. This is what I wish. As Kunti is to me, so also is Madri. There is no difference between them in my eye. I desire to act equally towards my mothers. Therefore let Nakula live. The Yaksha said, since abstention from injury is regarded by thee as higher than both profit and pleasure, therefore, let all thy brothers live, O bull of Bharata race. Thus ends the 311th section in the Aranaya Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 312, Aranaya Parva continued. Vaisampayana continued, then agreeable to the words of the Yaksha, the Pandavas rose up, and in a moment their hunger and thirst left them. Thereupon Yudhisthira said, I ask thee that art incapable of being vanquished and that standest on one leg in the tank, what god art thou, for I cannot take thee for a Yaksha. Art thou the foremost of the Vasus, or of the Rudras, or of the chief of the Maruths? Or art thou the Lord himself of the celestials, wielder of the thunderbolt? Each of these my brothers is capable of fighting as 100,000 warriors, and I see not the warrior that can slay them all. I see also that their senses have refreshed, as if they have sweetly awaked from slumber. Art thou a friend of ours, or even our father himself? At this the Yaksha replied, O child, I am even thy father, the Lord of justice, possessed of great prowess. Know, bull of the Bharata race, that I came hither desirous of beholding thee. Fame, truth, self-restraint, purity, candor, modesty, steadiness, charity, austerities and brahmacharya, these are my body. And abstention from injury, impartiality, peace, penances, sanctity and freedom from malice are the doors through which I am accessible. Thou art always dear to me. By good luck thou art devoted to the 5. And by good luck also thou hast conquered the 6. Of the 6, 2 appear in the first part of life, 2 in the middle part thereof, and the remaining 2 at the end, in order to make men repair to the next world. I am good but I thee, the Lord of justice. I came hither to test thy merit. I am well pleased to witness thy harmlessness, and, O sinless one, I will confer boons on thee. Do thou, O foremost of kings, ask of me boons. I shall surely confer them, O sinless one. Those that revere me, never come by distress. Yudhisthira said, a deer was carrying away the Brahmana's fire sticks. Therefore, the first boon that I shall ask, is, may that Brahmana's adorations to Agni be not interrupted. The Yaksha said, O Kunti's son endued with splendor, it was I who for examining thee, was carrying away in the guise of a deer that Brahmana's fire sticks. Vaisampayana continued, thereupon that worshipful one said, I give thee this boon. Good but I thee. O thou that art like unto an immortal, ask thou a fresh boon. Yudhisthira said, We have spent these 12 years in the forest, and the 13th year is come. May no one recognize us, as we spent this year somewhere. Vaisampayana continued, Thereat that worshipful one replied, I give this boon unto thee. And then reassuring Kunti's son having truth for prowess, he also said, Even if, O Bharata, ye range this entire earth in your proper forms, none in the three worlds shall recognize you. Ye perpetuators of the Kuru race, through my grace, ye will spend this 13th year, secretly and unrecognized, in Virata's kingdom. And every one of you will be able at will to assume any form he likes. Do ye now present the Brahmana with his fire sticks. It was only to test you that I carried them away in the form of a deer. O amiable Yudhisthira, do thou ask for another boon that thou mayst like. I will confer it on thee. O foremost of men, I have not yet been satisfied by granting boons to thee. Do thou, my son, accept a third boon that is great and incomparable. Thou, O king, art born of me and Vidura of portion of mine. Thereat Yudhisthira said, It is enough that I have beheld thee with my senses, eternal God of gods as thou art. O father, whatever boon thou wilt confer on me I shall surely accept gladly. May I, O Lord, always conquer covetousness and folly and anger, and may my mind be ever devoted to charity, truth, and ascetic austerities. The Lord of Justice said, Even by nature, O Pandava, hast thou been endued with these qualities, for thou art the Lord of Justice himself? Do thou again attain what thou asked for. Vaisampayana continued, having said these words, the worshipful Lord of Justice, who is the object of contemplation of all the worlds, vanished therefrom, and the high-souled Pandavas, after they had slept sweetly, were united with one another. And their fatigue dispelled, those heroes returned to the hermitage, and gave back that Brahmana his fire sticks. That man who pursued this illustrious and fame-enhancing story of the revival of the Pandavas and the meeting of father and son, Dharma and Yudhisthira, obtaineth perfect tranquility of mind and sons and grandsons, and also a life extending over 100 years. And the mind of that man that layeth this story to heart never delighteth in unrighteousness or in disunion among friends, or misappropriation of other persons' property, or staining other people's wives, or in foul thoughts. Thus ends the 312th section in the Aranaya Parva of the Vana Parva. Section 313, Aranaya Parva continued. Vaisampayana continued, commanded by the Lord of Justice to thus spend in disguise the 13th year of non-discovery, the high-souled Pandavas, observant of vows and having truth for prowess, sat before those learned and vow-observing ascetics that from regard were dwelling with them in their exile in the forest. And with joined hands they said these words with the intention of obtaining permission to spend the 13th year in the manner indicated. And they said, Ye know well that the sons of Dhritarashtra have by deceit deprived us of our kingdom, and have also done us many other wrongs. We have passed 12 years in the forest in great affliction. The 13th year only, which we are to spend unrecognized, yet remaineth. It behoveth you to permit us now to spend this year in concealment. Those rancorous enemies of ours, Suyodhana, the wicked-minded Karna, and Suvila's son, should they discover us, would do mighty wrong to the citizens and our friends. Shall we all with the Brahmanas be again established in our own kingdom? Having said this, that pure-spirited son of Dharma, King Yudhisthira, overwhelmed with grief and with accents choked in tears, swooned away. Thereupon the Brahmanas, together with his brothers, began to cheer him up. Then Dhaumya spake unto the king these words fraught with mighty meaning, O king, thou art learned and capable of bearing privations, art firm in promise, and of subdued sense. Men of such stamp are not overwhelmed by any calamity whatever. Even the high-souled gods themselves have wandered over various places in disguise, for the purpose of overcoming foes. Indra, for the purpose of overcoming his foes, dwelt in disguise in the asylum of Giriprastha, in Nishada, and thus attained his end. Before taking his birth in the womb of Aditi, Vishnu, for the purpose of destroying the Daityas, passed a long time unrecognized, assuming the form of the Hayagriba, horse-necked. Then how, disguising himself in the form of a dwarf, he by his prowess deprived Vali of his kingdom, hath been heard by thee. And thou hast also heard how Hutasana, entering into water and remaining in concealment, achieved the purpose of the gods. And O thou worst in duty, thou hast heard how Hari, with the view of overcoming his foes, entered into Sakra's thunderbolt, and lay concealed there. And O sinless one, thou hast heard of the office the regenerate Rishi Orva at one time performed for the gods, remaining concealed in his mother's womb. And O child, living in concealment in every part of the earth, Vivaswat, endued with excellent energy, at last entirely burnt up all his foes. And living disguised in the abode of Dasaratha, Vishnu of dreadful deeds slew the 10-necked one in battle. Thus remaining in disguise in various places, high-souled persons have before this conquered their enemies in battle. Thus cheered by these words of Domya, the virtuous Yudhisthira, relying on his own wisdom and also that acquired from the scriptures, regained his composure. Then that foremost of strong persons, the mighty armed Bhimasena, endued with great strength, encouraging the king greatly, spake these words: looking up to thy face for permission, the wielder of the Gandiva, acting according to his sense of duty, hath not yet, O king, shown any rashness. And although fully able to destroy the foe, Nakula and Sahadeva of dreadful prowess have been ever prevented by me. Never shall we swerve from that in which thou wilt engage us. Do thou tell us what is to be done. We shall speedily conquer our enemies. When Bhimasena had said this, the Brahmanas uttered benedictions on the Bharatas, and then obtaining their permission, went to their respective quarters. And all those foremost of Yatis and Munis versed in the Veds, exceedingly desirous of again beholding the Pandavas, went back to their homes. And accompanied by Domya, these heroes, the 5 learned Pandavas equipped in wars, set out with Krishna. And each versed in a separate science, and all proficient in mantras and cognizant of when peace was to be concluded and when war was to be waged. Those tigers among men, about to enter upon a life of non-recognition, the next day proceeded for a cross and then sat themselves down with the view of taking counsel of each other. Thus ends the 313th section in the Aranaya of the Vana Parva. Thus ends the Vana Parva. Thus ends Volume 3 of the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.